Welcome to the Miniatures Paintbrush. I have a giant chainsaw back there, and welcome to another episode of Painting Tutorials. Welcome back, TMP fans. So today what we're going to do is we're going to paint up some elves. Now, not just any elves. There's a lot of different elves out there for Warhammer, especially. The trope of the Lumineth. You have those Idoneth Deepkin. There's the Water Elves, which, interesting, right? And then you have the Sylvaneth, which is transformative Wood Elves. But I'll tell you, there was something about those old world Wood Elves that I kind of liked, especially the ones where they had the riders on stag. That was pretty cool. I always kind of wanted to like paint something like that. Like I had an itch I needed to scratch, and here it was. So not very recently, GW or Warhammer, as they want to be called now, produced a warband for Warhammer Underworlds. Now, Warhammer Underworlds is a pretty cool board game and card collecting game that you can get really into. Although I don't play competitively, so I play with whatever cards I got, and if I think the card is cool, I kind of add it up to my deck and then play with those. My wife and I like to play it because it's short and sweet and strategic. We like these things, right? So there was a warband of elves that I really tickled my fancy. They were wood elves, and I thought they were the bee's knees. And here they are. There's something about roaming free through the woods that is just so liberating. And these miniatures really pushed me. Because, you know, I try to paint every miniature to push myself as a painter, and it really pushed me to get out of the airbrush, to really get out of the airbrush and really start working on the kind of tones and bringing up the volumes of color and creating contrast with color itself. And this is great. This is really great. This is one of the miniatures that I'm kind of proud of, even though mistakes were made. Of course, mistakes were made, because success is built on a mountain of failure. But these miniatures are so fun. This guy's blowing a horn over here with his staff. You know reinforcements are going to come. This is pretty powerful magic, dude. You have this lady over here. I'll tell you, having those gloves that come like all the way up and doing the stitching on there, magnifique. You know, that was really cool to be able to do that. And what else? We have here this little lion. Got a little lion going on over here. You can see a grand reveal. And I tried something new with that. I put a little stripes in there to simulate like maybe some hair or something like that. Really wanted to play with the dynamics. I saw like blank swaths of like just monotone, monocolored. Not really monocolored. I mean, they have a gradient to it, but really it wasn't enough interest, so I needed to add some more in there. And this was kind of fun doing. This was fun putting in all the stripes in there and really making it come alive. It was so much fun. It was so much fun. And then this guy, which was a nightmare to build. This guy is a nightmare to build, and we're going to start off with this guy right here. This guy is trouncing on top of some broken branch, which the connection points are weak as ammonia. I don't know. Farfignugan. So I tried multiple ways to try to get this to be stuck. It kind of broke. I finally settled on some some green stuff, which I balled up into this huge ball, and I sculpted into this like, I don't know, like a beehive kind of thing, which holds it together very well. Though it's a little shorter than the rest of them. But you know what? These are mine. I do like the water little impact that it has over there in the relief. You know, building up these easy push fit models really challenges me, because I'm a sub-assemble person, and you really can't sub-assemble when you're doing these kinds of miniatures. You kind of got to push them all together and just paint them as is, which is fine. I mean, it's okay. It's not my comfort zone, but learning how to paint is breaking out of your comfort zone. I know if you have an army out there and you paint your army a certain way, and then you become closed off to any other way of painting, then you're not really going to grow as a painter. If you want to grow as a painter and want to have those break your brushes kind of miniatures that you see for display artists, then you're going to have to break out of your comfort zone and do something pretty challenging that you might fail at. And that's okay. Failing is fine. All you have to do is repaint the model. What's the big deal? It's not really. So why not have some fun while painting? I have noticed that a lot of people burn out because they're not having fun with painting. They're just not, you know? And, well, having something challenging and frustrating, a little bit frustrating, right? And overcoming that frustration, that's when the excitement starts. It's like, oh, wait, I never thought I could do that. And there, lo and behold, there it is. There is your prize, right? Like, because I never ever thought I would do as closest to a wood elf kind of on a stag that I can ever do. And it was a pure pleasure to paint this up and experiment with different kind of colors and mess around with things. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. So enough of this. Enough of this talking. Let's go down to Table Town and see how I painted these guys up. All right, so it is time to paint up this godforsaken model. I tried everything. I had vines. I had green stuff. I had drilling that I tried with it. I tried to put these pieces together. Now, initially, they just broke right off. It's a very, very tenuous connection point. I drilled it. I even put paper clips onto it. I tried. I wound up doing a whole bunch, a swath of green stuff in order to get it to stick. All right, starting off with a zenithal. I can easily dry brush this, but why would I? What do I have to prove, right? So I just zenithal right there, doing a plague brown, a dark flesh, and a basic skin tone for the skin tone for these wood elves. Mainly plague brown, trying to get it a brown, trying to work with those brown tones. When it comes to skin color, interesting because it's a plague brown, not the closest human skin tone at all, but these are elves. So I didn't want to go for basic kind of skin tones. I wanted to up the ante and try to use some plague brown, which is hardly ever used in my color palette. So yeah, trying to get to use all the paints that I bought is definitely something I am into. Now I'm doing some volumetric painting. What I'm trying to do is just get a lighter skin tone on where the sun is hitting the model or where the light source is hitting the model. I'm trying to get a little bit of a transition here, but I'm not really worried about it just yet. But wet blending comes into mind. Just take a little bit of the original color and then, you know, with your loaded brush, kind of just like blend them both in on the model. That's something I'm working on. The skill that I want to definitely improve. All right, so next up is this skin tone and the face. You really want to pay a close attention to the face and have it the lightest skin tone as possible, the most dramatic kind of transitions. So this way people pay attention to that as well. And for cohesiveness, you kind of want to integrate the same colors into the model, but not as much. All right, bringing it up to 11 and bringing it back down to a 10 with a wash. Here comes some Reikland Flesh Aid over everything because the skin looks great, but the recesses aren't dark enough. So I'm just going to put a slathering of this onto the skin tone and then just wipe off all the excess and make sure it goes into the recesses and very little of it stain the top layers. I can always go back and brighten up those highlights if I want to, but this is just an easy step to get into it. All right, now I did a darker brown over here. And you can paint your horse, if you're painting along with me, your horse any color you want to. This is just something that I had that I used for leather. And I wanted to do that brown, darker brown into it. It's like a red brown that you can get into. You can use any model, any paint that you want to in order to achieve this red brown kind of look. All right, going with my flesh tones and skin tones and plague brown, Again, trying to give that leathery kind of experience to it. But I did add a little bit of more yellow into this lion here to just make it a little more differentiated than the rest of the model, kind of playing around here. I never did paint a lion before. And for the shadows, I wanted to color the shadows with a nice saddlebag brown. And it's important for you to color your shadows in, simply because if you look at anything, black is usually not its shadow color. So if you look at a picture of somebody, let's say if you're taking a picture of my face in the sun, the bottom parts of the sun, the bottom parts where the sun is not hitting aren't black. They're just a darker version, a dramatically darker version than my skin. Therefore, paint your shadow colors. All right, some Reikland Flesh Aid this time, just to get that differentiated color into the lion here. And really just painting it over and seeing where the recesses are to really encourage that different kind of skin tone than on the wood elves themselves. I don't want the skin tone of the wood elves and the skin tone of the lion to be exactly the same, because that would look really odd and non-cohesive as a group. All right, there is that pain in the butt model, which I am taking some primer that I'm brushing on and trying to cover up the big old wasp hive that I got going on there. And really trying to differentiate the natural sources from the wood elves, which are natural sources. It was kind of tricky. Mephiston Red with some Wazaka Red and Evil Sun Scarlet to save the day with the reds. And that is going to be for the shoulder pauldrons. I don't know what you want to call that on the horse. I guess the hip protectors. And going in with that Mephiston Red, which goes on bright, but it dries really dull red. Just like this soldier pauldron here. That's why you need the other colors, just to heighten it up. Always keep in mind where the sun is coming from, or the light source is coming from for your models, and make sure your entire model, no matter what color you're painting, reflects that light. So studying the lights on your model is super important, and where that light is coming from. And keeping consistency throughout the model will help it look a little more realistic. So you may want to really focus in on those. Okay, Elysian Green, War Boss Green, and Calibite Green, which is the darkest. And that's going to be my triad for the greens right here, hence known as dark green, medium green, and light green. So we're going to start off with a dark green on the cloak and work our way up with some wet blends. And then I am going to just really work on the flowery bits as well. And then it's kind of a little different, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the lighter tones onto the organic light leaves of the model, and then doing the opposite. Some green stuff as well. There was this one area of the model that I don't know, I think I lost a piece to. So I had to sculpt on the area there just to blend it in with the cloak, which is not really a big deal. All you have to do is put on that green stuff and then just take yourself a sculpting tool and make some lines and grooves. And that definitely helps it blend in with the model. And all you have to do is throw some paint on it with the surrounding area. And before you know it, even if you have a missing piece, it'll just blend into the model, and you won't have to worry about, missing the piece or people actually, voting like, oh my gosh, there's this piece missing, there's no way it's going to be cohesive or anything like that. Nah, forget that. Just get some green stuff in and have some fun with it. All right, time for those cloaks again. Again, starting with that dark green, that Caliban green, going into those recesses. And really laying on the Caliban green on the cloak separates it from the plant life. And you really need that in this kind of kit, where it has both green cloaks and green plants. So this way they're not very samey, but they're from the same sort of family. In other words, a family of colors. You're using the same colors for each, but you're making the darker green more pronounced on the cloak. Next up, what we're going to do is we're going to get little hash marks. I felt the lion needed something special. It just wasn't doing it for me. So I wanted to up the interest by doing little hash marks onto the lion. Tiny little hash marks differentiated to making sure that it's definitely an alien life source, but at the same time, you can identify it as a lion itself. So it comes across as both alien and familiar. And making sure the contrast values on each is just popping. Okay, you have Fusion Orange as well as Fire Dragon Bright. This is an excellent combination for the hair. I'm starting up with the shade itself on the hair, which is interesting because usually you use the shades for the last bits of a model, but I wanted to start tinting the hair. In retrospect, I might have used a speed paint for this process, and it might have literally sped things along. So, but I mean, the end result came out pretty amazing, and it did retain all the shadows that I wanted it to retain. Now, time for the highlights here, and you're going to see how much contrast this Fire Bright Orange gives to orange hair. It is just tremendous, the jumps in values and brightness, therefore adding a lot of contrast to it. But when you're messing around with contrast like that, you have to be careful, because one errant mark might cost you repainting an area, which is not that bad per se, but I did try to wet blend this, so there was a lot of paint going around. So I had to be very careful on where the paint was landing and or settling. So really keeping that in mind, keeping the shadows in the shadows and not overpainting those areas. All right, time for a little bit of airbrush, because simply the bases. Now the bases on these models are quite interesting because they are actually attached and molded onto the base itself. Fans of the channel will actually remember that I really love doing my own bases and creating a nice environment to live in. But you know, this comes with it pre-molded, so might as well just go in and try it. Keep in mind, not using airbrush for most of this is not definitely my technique per se. So I'm just trying something new and breaking out of my comfort zone, which is kind of fun and scary at the same time. So we're starting with a deeper orange and then a dry brush of a sky blue, and then going back with Dragonoff Nightshade as a shade color and trying to get into the recesses of that worked really well. Now you can do any kind of blue really, because water technically isn't blue, it's clear. So this is more like fantasy blue, and if anything is in fantasy world, you can paint it any color you really want to. So don't sweat the details here. Just have fun painting your miniatures. That's super important. Really touching the areas of the shades, just like water. Now I'm going to get into the alien life forms of the fauna and flora. We have here little peps or pips, and I added a little more yellow to skin tone. Again, using the same colors throughout the entire model gives you coherency and consistency. It's something you definitely want to have within your model. So using the limited color palette will definitely help you make all the pieces feel part of a team. Going back with the oranges there, and then that bright fire orange as a highlight makes it pop. And I do like that there are flowers here, because I don't normally paint too many flowers on my bases. Maybe I should. I just get into that. And these flowers are huge leaved. They have all this area to work on. So really just getting in some highlights was challenging because it's a pre-made base. I did put a little bit of tree bark into my base because, you know, I have to have a little bit that signifies, you know, it's me, it's mine, right? Next up, we're going to paint. I don't want to call this a saddle, but I did get saddle brown in order to do it, because who would ride a Minotaur? That be kind of weird, I think. You know, I'm not very Minotaur-y painting kind of guy, or saddling up on a Minotaur, because your privates are rubbing up on their back, and that's just weird for everybody. So stay off some Minotaurs. Next up, we're going to do some silver. I figured for the stag, for the horns itself, I wanted to do some kind of aluminum contrast in there. And aluminum is just white color paint with some pigments and some metal fleck in there to reflect the silvery kind of tone. This is an aluminum from Vallejo Model Color, and I do like those. And coming up to the end of it, where we're doing the black bases, usually that is just my final touch. I did go back onto it and take a Micron pen and just get some of the darkest resources and recesses and do some edge highlighting. Just bring that contrast up in any places that I missed. I love Micron pens for little details like that. And now it's time for the grand reveal. Man, this is so nice to paint up. All the little gubbins. It was kind of hard for me because not getting those muscle islands, you know, and blending stuff in and playing with wet blending. It really pushed my skill as a painter, and I think I've improved throughout this little series that I'm doing with doing Warhammer, Underworld, warbands, and just doing it without touching the airbrush. Yeah, it has been challenging, but it is a lot of fun. I'm going to get these on the table, and Sarah, I'm coming at you. Sarah's going to see what he can do with these guys over here. Although her game is strong, so I'm going to get to that. But in the meantime, remember, paint every miniature to increase at least one skill, and may your backlog be ever smaller.
Step 1, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some good, some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a